Hello everyone, welcome back to another daily Marvel Snap video. So today I have a new take on the Death Wave style archetype. This deck list didn't come from me, it came from a user named soulknife, and the main idea behind it is to lock down 2 locations with Goose. So you drop Goose on 2, you follow up with Mystique on 3, allowing you to limit the space that the opponent can play, and it counters a lot of the meta style cards right now. So a destroyer type deck that's wanting to drop Professor X, they can now only lock down one lane. And then if they're running destroyer, after they drop Professor X, they won't be able to drop it. If it's any deck that uses like Devil Dino, that one's out. If it's looking at a Wong style build, and you can read where they're going to drop Wong and try to stack, you can drop your Goose or your Mystique in that lane to counter that as well. So if it looks like it's an ongoing Spectrum Wong deck, you can hold your Goose and Mystique for a couple of extra turns and then drop them strategically so that you counter the Wong play and pretty much counter their whole deck. And then if you see an Invisible Woman, you can drop Goose or Mystique in that lane. They can no longer drop Hela if that's what they were going for. They can no longer do a lot of the pieces and combos that they were wanting to do. So running through the entire deck list really quickly, we have the Hood. So the Hood is here. He generates a really high power 1-cost token that can be played in a Goose lane. And he's going to be a card that we can either play into the lane we're not wanting to commit to, or that we can destroy with our Killmonger. We have Ant-Man. Ant-Man is here to kind of push a lane over the edge by having a cheap 1-drop card. If you need it and it comes down to it, you can always drop Ant-Man to be hit with Killmonger if you need that second destruction, so that you can do the wave death combo at the very end. We have Yondu. Yondu is phenomenal right now with Death Wave because of the way his ability interacts with it. On reveal, it's going to remove one of the top cards of your opponent's deck, and that will discount your death. We have Angela. Angela's going to be good to play into one of the lanes and then start capping it out with your Goose and your other low-cost cards to give a pretty decent power push. And then Mojo, if you are going up against a Zoo mirror match, Mojo is huge in helping you propel that power level and push it up over that barrier that you need. We have Mystique. Mystique's primary target in this deck list is Goose. But if it looks like it's a game that's not going to benefit you using Goose, or maybe you don't have Goose, you can always use it on an Ant-Man, which isn't great, but it's okay. You can also use it on a Mojo. And so if you use this in a Mojo and they swarm the board, you now have an extra 6 power card that you're throwing onto the board and into the mix. We have Bishop. Bishop is going to be decent to throw into a lane first or right after Goose or Mystique. And then he's going to buff up for every card that you play. So he'll on average get to around 6 to 8 power, which is pretty decent. We have Killmonger as the main way that we're going to try to get the destructions required to drop our death along with another card on turn 6. Killmonger is going to target both our and the opponent's 1-cost cards. And so if there is a location that generates squirrels, we can destroy all of those and have a huge upside. And then if not, we have a few 1-cost drops that can be targeted by him as well. We have Wave. Wave, next turn, cards in both players' hands will cost 4. The main use for Wave in this deck list is to drop her on 5, which will discount your death to 4, but Death's ability costs 1 less for each card destroyed. We'll start calculating from that point. On turn 6, you only need to have destroyed 2 cards to be able to drop Death and another card onto the board. And then Maximus is a secondary target. If you don't draw into your Death on that last turn, Maximus is a good power push to finish out and cap out a lane and try to swing that power level in your favor. And then Death. The whole reason that this deck list works is that Death doesn't cost 4, 5, or 6. And so for whatever reason, she is able to be played into the Goose lane. It comes down to how the text is written and how that logic is written. Since this doesn't say nobody can play 4+ cost cards at this location, it only specifically limits those 3, 4, 5, or 6, and Death is the exception to that rule. Since she by default costs 9, that is what gets calculated. So Death can be dropped in pretty much any lane, which makes her really, really consistent. And so that is the rundown of the deck list. We are going to go ahead and jump into a few games and see how well it goes. Alright, so first up we have Smitty, and we have our Mystique in our starting hand, we have our Wave and Death, so if we can get some destruction going, we should have a pretty good final turn, and then of course, if we draw into Goose, that's perfect. I think we're going to drop Yondu into Hala. That will count as 1 card destruction that we need, and then if they come up over us in Hala, that will count as the second. And then if they even play anything and it gets destroyed, that'll count as the second as well. We killed an ongoing card. So I'm wondering if they have like a Wong Spectrum style deck build. And then in the vault, on turn 6, cards aren't going to be able to be played there. So maybe we want to shy away from that. A lot of our power push is on the last turn. and it makes it difficult for them to, or it makes it difficult for us to push high power in that scenario. So this may end up being a mojo game. We don't have Goose. We have one more turn to draw into it, but if we do, then we can really only drop that. We wouldn't be able to do the death wave portion of our combo. We're gonna go ahead and drop mojo since we are going to have these cards destroyed. We don't want to be too far down in power level, so we want to still be somewhat competitive. And it looks like, ooh, so they go with Morph, which hits our demon that we just generated. So unfortunate, because it could have flipped into Mystique, and which is very, very unfortunate. So I think we might just go with the Angelo wave here, because we're not likely to draw into anything big next turn, anything bigger than 6, but we might. So maybe we go with Demon Wave, and then that'll let us drop Death either here or here, depending on where they drop power this turn. And then followed up with, or in addition to, something else. Ooh, so they use a 16 power Red Skull. That is gonna be one below. Oh, that feels so bad. We are just one below that limit of what we need. And so we know that they're only gonna be able to drop one card this turn. Since we lose this lane anyways, we don't need the demon. So maybe we go with a we could go with Killmonger to tie this lane, but I anticipate a Taskmaster maybe, which would give them a 16 power card here. So we would end up winning this location, because this would be 24, 25, 26. We would win this one by 10. They would win this one by 9. Really? I think that's a decent play line. So the plus 14 powered Death is going to push us up to 24. By playing Death and Killmonger, that'll be 25 and 26. They drop a Taskmaster, which is probably their highest power push, if that is what they're playing. I'm thinking that they probably will play here, because you would want to flip one of the locations. Or since they know that we can't play here, maybe they double down and invest here. It depends on where they drop their resources. I think they do the Taskmaster here, is my read. Oh, so it's a Giganto, which is still 16 power. It's the same output, the same read. We kill their demon, we kill our demon, we lose the vault by 9, we win the embassy by 10. Smitty, there are no words. Oh, that's not even like the optimal play line. We didn't even draw into the Goose, like the cool Goose interaction, and we were able to push enough power and limit them in their power enough that we snuck out a win. It's a good start. For the second match, we do have Null Void. We have Yondu, so we get one card destruction at the very least. And then if we can draw into Killmonger, that's perfect. That will discount our death by enough. Ooh, and they're running the Hood. So I'm wondering if they're running a death style deck as well. And if so, Goose is huge in kind of limiting the space that they're able to play. On turn 6, we can move cards to this location. So we don't want to Goose this lane, because they'll be able to move cards in anyways. So I'm going to go ahead and play Angela into the unknown location here. And then we're still looking for our Goose. Ooh, they ramp up, so they have 4 energy. I would anticipate a Wong or a Mr. Negative play here. Ooh, and so this one is now locked down until turn 6, which is kind of rough. But if we're able to get our Death Wave combo off, we can push a lot of power here, maybe more than they will be able to kind of combat. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the Hood and Mojo. I did want to drop Ant-Man, but if we draw into Killmonger, we do want to use Killmonger to push our destructions up over that point where it's required. And so they do use a Thor, okay. And so Los Diablos base comes down. It's up in the air for a long time. That was a long transition, but it does ruin the miniaturized lab. So we are able to play in this location again. I kind of wish the Hood wasn't here. We can do our Ant-Man and our Demon, because we're going to be able to move those over into New York on the last turn if we'd like to. And so that will double trigger our Angela getting buffed up, and then we can move the cards over. We can trigger it a couple more times on the last turn if needed. And so then they use Ironheart, and so they have Thor. That not a great, oh man, and then we draw into Killmonger. Feels really bad. I think we drop our wave here, and then we move probably Demon, Ant-Man, and Mojo here, trying to give a decent power push. I'll calculate how much that would be. Actually, no, they're not going to push 4 cards here, so Mojo would be kind of useless, I think. But regardless, so they do drop 1 card. Maybe they won't get drawn to Mjolnir. Oh, so even if they did, the wave on that last turn comes in very, very handy for us. Because they would want to drop Mjolnir, maybe they would cycle the cards with like a Lockjaw. But since we made all of them cost 4, they're not able to do their Wasp, their Mjolnir, their 0 cost cards where they can really push a lot of power on the last turn. And so the wave ended up countering them, and it's something I should have thought about, but I didn't until they ended up retreating. So right now, that is 2-0. Okay, so next up we have Monkey Man. And the first location is Sinister London, so we can get some pretty cool things going on. We could potentially Goose all 3 locations, which would be huge. It would be amazing. We can do Mojo, because a lot of times with Sinister London, the board gets completely capped out. Ooh, so they're running a Daredevil. That tells me they probably want to drop a Professor X at some point. And if we can stop that from happening, it'll be huge. But we would have to draw into Goose this next turn. We are going to drop a double Killmonger here. Or do we just drop a single Killmonger? I think we drop a double Killmonger and try to get it to go into the Crimson Cosmos, because we don't have any cards that we can oh no. So any of our triggers, if it goes into Crimson Cosmos, that's awful. Well, okay. Oh, that feels so bad. Okay. So I think we're going to drop our Bishop. We'll go ahead and drop our Ant-Man. Next turn will be the last turn before our cards will flip hands. And so they may play a Professor X to lock down Sinister London. It would lock down 2 locations, but we can drop our Maximus for a good power push, and it's going to give us cards and resources. And we draw into Goose just a little bit late here, but we're going to go ahead and drop both of them here anyways, and then that will duplicate. So maybe they end up just doing like a Professor X here instead, but let's go ahead and snap before they see the outcome. Or actually, no, snapping doesn't matter, does it? Because even if they see the outcome of our play, it really doesn't matter. So we're going to lock in Goose and Maximus, which is a decent power push, and it will potentially lock them down from playing any cards here. And we're going to send them a Mystique and a Death next turn, which is not great for them. We're going to force them to draw into more of their cards, more of their resources, and so we'll have a decent amount to choose from to try and play into probably the Crimson Cosmos. And so we do lock down our decision here. Whether Maximus goes off with the Cosmo or not, it's okay. And so I think they probably lock down the Mindscape with a Professor X, right? No, they send a Hobgoblin. Ooh, that feels pretty bad. And that makes sure that our Maximus does not trigger, but we make sure that we don't send them any key resources. They're not going to be able to drop anything large. We're going to end up sending them our Death and our Mystique. And so they send us a lot of low-cost cards. They would have had to get a really lucky top deck here to bring this the rest of the way home. And so I think we're just going to probably in this turn here. It's unfortunate that they capped us out. Okay, and so they did give us the thumbs up as they realized that they didn't have a win condition, and so that is win number 3. And none of them have went like exactly to that Goose Mystique combo, which I think goes to support that this deck is good even if you don't draw into that particular high roll. When you do, it feels really, really solid, but even if you don't, it has quite a bit of potential anyways. All right, so next up we have Zabimaru, and we have Wave, we have Bishop, we have a couple of our kind of decent resources. We just need to draw into some of the other ones, some of our other tools. So they have a Nova. They will probably end up killing off their Nova with like a Carnage before Kiln locks down. So I'm thinking maybe we don't even try to push for Kiln, because most of our power and most of this deck is going to push late game. And so they have initiative here. If they end up using a Carnage this turn, that feels kind of bad. Oh, and then the Mirror Dimension is kind of scary, because that would make both of these locations lock down after next turn if it copies into Kiln. So we're going to drop our Killmonger into the Mirror Dimension. We're going to use Killmonger to destroy their Nova, unintentionally, their Iceman, so that they don't get a good upside. They can still kill Bucky Barnes, but they're not going to get as good of an upside from it as they would have wanted. And so Iceman hit our Bishop here, and I'm not sure that this is the best play line. I anticipate that they do push power into Kiln this turn. We're not going to be able to compete with them because we are much more late game based. And so I'm just going to drop our Bishop. This is probably a Deathlock or a Carnage. And so they do end up not getting the benefit from Nova at all. And they do have 11 power in Kiln. Now we have our Goose, followed with our Mystique. And so after this turn, they're not going to be able to drop any large cards. It did come just a little bit too little too late, but better late than never, right? And so we drop our Goose in Washington, D.C. They drop 2 resources depending on what they drop here. Could tell us if we have a chance or not. Now, nobody can drop high power cards into the other lanes. And so something like a destroyer, which it looks like they're running a lower to the ground style deck. So maybe we do, oh wow, they ended up retreating. So I'm guessing they didn't either. I'm guessing either they had higher cost resources and they couldn't really play much into these 2 locations, or they just didn't think that they were going to be able to flip both of these or hold down both of them. It's very fortunate. We are 4-0 now for a decent amount of cube gains. All right, so we are back. We are now up against Tifife. We're going to drop our Yondu. That is going to count as one of the destructions towards our death. And we, in between last game and this game, we did drop 2 games. One was to a weird world location, and so we were playing their cards, they were playing ours. So does that count as a win for us because they were playing our cards? And then the other was to a Mr. Negative high roll. And sometimes you're not going to be able to stop those things. And so Sanctum Sanctorum is a tough one for us. But if we can draw into Goose and Mystique, that'd be beautiful. But odds are we won't be able to, because if with the Daredevil, maybe they're looking at doing a large turn 5 play where they drop a Professor X and lock down a location. So I think we're going to do Mojo. We're also going to do Ant-Man just to push some decent power into Muir Island, and it'll get buffed up each turn. We'll leave that last location as a flex spot so that if we need to cap it out, we can, but we're going to get a pretty good upside every single turn from the cards that we have in place now. And so we do get Mystique here, which the last card we played was Ant-Man. We should have flipped the order just in case, but we did not, unfortunately. And next turn, cards are going to cost 1 more. And we don't really want to drop our Maximus. We don't really want to drop our wave, but maybe we do. Maybe we do just to get some power into that lane. If they do a Hobgoblin here, that it feels pretty rough, but I don't think we have another great play line. The Hobgoblin would be next turn, of course. Ooh, and so then they use Killmonger, which does kind of work in our favor. If we hadn't dropped wave, it would help us discount our death, but since we did, it won't. And so then... If we hadn't dropped wave, we wouldn't be able to drop both of these because of Dream Dimension. Otherwise, we'd be able to drop both this turn. So if they do a Professor X, it'll just tie this location. It won't win it for us. I think we may have to bite the bullet and let them get additional cards, which never feels great. That's pretty much guaranteeing that they can get all the way through to whatever combo they need. But I think we need a pretty good power push. So if they do a Hobgoblin here, I think we still have a decent chance in this lane, especially if they end up capping it out eventually. And so while we're waiting for them to make their decision, during our last live stream, we did have a user use the super chat feature, which is similar to the super thanks feature. They made a donation to have their chat highlighted. It stays at the top of the video. Really cool feature, and it helps support us as a content creator. It helps me put money aside to purchase better equipment so that I can continue to improve the quality of the videos and of the stream. And so they do drop the Hobgoblin, but it does end up making us tied here. And so if they don't drop a resource here, I think they messed up. If they don't drop a resource here, then we win by 1 in Muir Island. If they do, then we get a 6 power bonus. And so it'll have to be more than 6 power, but they would have to drop that there, meaning they can't compete for these other 2 locations. So I think the Hobgoblin here was a misplay. Maybe they just didn't have a great option. We are going to drop our death into Dream Dimension here. We're not going to snap. I think we could. I think we have a good shot of winning, unless they have a way to push 6 power and something into Sanctum Sanctorum. But yeah, I think we have a decent shot here. As I was saying, Anthony Caldwell, I just wanted to say thank you for supporting me as a content creator. It is very much appreciated. Let's go ahead and lock in this last turn play. They do play 2 cards here. The one is Warpath, which is a pretty decent push. But then their Nova, of course, is not enough to win them that lane because of our Mojo. Our Mojo came in very, very handy and very clutch there. So we do end up not even just tying, but we end up winning both locations. Not a standard game. Definitely didn't get to use the old Goose Mystique combo, but we're going to keep playing until we do. That may be 10 games. Whenever I was testing this, I played about 4 games, and I had it 3 out of the 4 games, which is very, very rare. So we were due for a dry streak, but I hope that it's over now. All right, so next up we have Marchies, and we have our Yondu to cause 1 trigger destruction. We have our death. We have Angela, which will be nice to play into another lane to start getting benefit there. And we're going to play Yondu early so that he'll start buffing up over time. If we end up needing to kill him with a Killmonger, we can. but otherwise it's a pretty decent play just to have him there. So we do draw into our Killmonger here. So maybe we drop Angela. We'll follow that up with maybe a Killmonger. That'll count as the second trigger. Then if we draw into our wave, we can do the wave death combo. So they drop a Lizard, which is a pretty high power card unless we cap out this location. So we're going to go ahead and do a Killmonger, which will kill our Yondu, which is kind of unfortunate, but that's okay. It will allow us to do our death combo on the last turn. And so that's going to be huge. So they do an armor. It is just a little bit too late though. If they had initiative, they would have stopped us from using our Killmonger. But lucky for us, they did not have initiative. So going into this turn, I think we're going to drop our Mojo. That is going to discourage them from capping out this location, because then if they cap it out, we get an additional 6 power. Ooh, and they have a Wong. If we can draw into Goose here, I think we do the Goose wave. That will stop them from doing anything big. Ooh, they don't. Oh, awful. So maybe it's the Spectrum, like ongoing style. So if they can be winning going into next turn, never mind. This has the armor. So the wave is going to make it where they can only drop one card. And if that is, so if they do a Mystique here, that ends up being Spectrum, maybe we play our wave here and we'll do the Hood here to give up this location. Because if they have Mystique, I anticipate a Mystique and then a Spectrum, which will trigger the on reveal 4 times. So it'll be 4 times 4, so it'll be an extra 16 power in Weir Island. That'll put them at 29. So then if we do our death, that'll put us well above 29. And then we'll have Maximus to compete for Wakandan Embassy, just in case they don't go with the hub play here. So is this a Mystique? If so, we got the read absolutely correct, and they have no shot. It is the Mystique. So unless they do maybe even a Gambit would end up, well, a Gambit would guarantee that they win this location, and then we would win this one. And so they snap. Let's go ahead and snap back at them. They can only drop 1 card. We have the upside of being able to drop 2. I think we're going to let them win this one. A Spectrum is going to make it really difficult for us to come up over and win in the hub, but our death here is huge. And then they snapped, which kind of, which a lot of this deck, it's so unique in that death style. Like you don't anticipate it as much. Typically you see Yondu, you're like, yep, that's a death wave. But then you start seeing Angela and Mojo, and then you kind of start questioning it a little bit. And so they can only drop 1 card. I anticipate a Spectrum. Let's go ahead and lock this in. Let's see how this one plays out. Let's see the Spectrum come down, not be enough. We of course reduce their Lizard by 3 by capping out our side of the location. Here comes the 4 trigger Spectrum, which is not enough. It is going to put them around 29, right? 28 after all is said and done. Puts us at 41 because of the big death last turn push. And then of course a not too bad 12 power over here. Guys, we still have not got the Goose Mystique Wombo combo. So this deck has quite a bit of flexibility. I did say we're going to keep playing until we get that combo off. So here we go. Here is game 7 coming up. All right. So next up we have Monkey Man. We're going to play our Yondu to start discounting our death. We have Mojo, Wave, Maximus. So no, ooh, we get their Destroyer. Guys, we will take the 1 cube and go. All right, so next up we have Drake J, and honestly we would like to be able to edit this video at some point, but we are now on game 8 and no shot of Goose in our line of sight. Oh man, feels bad. Feels real bad. We're gonna drop our Hood into the miniaturized lab. If it gets locked down and we can't play there, that's fine. If we end up using our Killmonger, that's fine. It'll end up destroying it. They do a Quicksilver Domino. Interesting. That's not something that's ran very commonly. So, oh guys, beautiful. This is beautiful. This could work. So, ooh, they snap, really. Let's snap back at them. So we have the Goose, which is going to stop them from playing any large cards here. So anything that's 4, 5, or 6 cost. Same thing here. And then this one is going to be locked down for turns 4 and 5, only to open back up on 6. So if they are running a large minion deck, they're done. They're done. So we're going to drop the Goose, the double Goose, and then the Demon. The rest of our cards are going to shuffle back into our hand after this turn, which is fine. If we didn't have the Goose Mystique combo, we would drop Maximus, because then they would draw cards and then shuffle them right back into their deck. deck. So let's go ahead and lock this one in. So they have a Mr. Negative. Mr. Negative runs a fair amount of 3 and below cost cards. So like Wolfsbane, Ironheart, but it also runs some higher power cards like Iron Man that they're not going to be able to drop until turn 6 now. And so I feel super fortunate that we were able to pull that off. So do we want to hold our Maximus? Do we want to drop Angela and Bishop here? We do have a couple more turns, so I don't know that there is a rush to dropping these cards. I think I'm just going to drop our Bishop now, see what they play, kind of feel it out. So they do get a couple of cards that they're able to play. Interesting. So they use Morph, which does a Maximus, which makes us draw our cards, which is great. We draw into Death and Killmonger. So Death has only been reduced by 1. No, Death hasn't been reduced at all, but if we drop a Yondu, we'll be able to do both if a wave was played, but we don't have wave. Maybe we go with a Mojo. We go with, do we ever go with, I don't think we ever go with Killmonger here. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So it would bring it down to 4 cost, and we could play it next turn. So maybe we do? Okay. We'll play it into Elysium. That'll let us, ooh, actually, no. Let's go ahead and pull it back. Let's drop our Yondu and our Killmonger. That is going to reduce Death down to, I think, 2. So we'll have a pretty decent play line, I feel like. And so they don't get to drop anything this turn. Interesting. So maybe we have a decent shot here. We kill their inverted white tiger, which is good. That would have been able to be played in Miniaturized Lab and push power to the sides, which we definitely do not want. And so we do free up a little bit of space, and we can now make our final push. So we have 2, 4, 6. We could do all 3 of these. Would it be more beneficial to do something like this, this, and this, though? That would end up only being 3. And so maybe we do... So what other cards do they have that can propel power? They have Iron Man and then Mystique, but they can't drop both of those. They've already dropped Ironheart, so maybe they go with a big push here. And so we'll drop a wave. We'll also drop 10 power here, pushing us to 14. What other low cost cards does a Mr. Negative deck run? I guess if they have a leader here, they absolutely obliterate us, right? We're going to lock this in. Otherwise, we're just going to sit and overanalyze it for too long. But I'm thinking maybe they do a power push here and then... Oh, I want to switch my Death here. No, I want to switch it over. I want to switch it over here. So they use a magic to extend the game by 1 turn. Not what we were anticipating, but we do drop a wave, so they can only drop 1 card. So that kind of works out in our favor, right? We do force them to draw the last 2 cards in their deck, which isn't great, but we push an acceptable power here. They don't have their white tiger because we did destroy it. We've drawn through all of our cards, so all we have is Angela. Oh no. Okay, so they end up retreating. They didn't have a way to play that power or those resources, so they had a lot of really powerful inverted cards, I imagine. They could have had an inverted Iron Man and then a Mystique. If they had a Mystique, they could have gotten us there. But the Goose combo did come in. I feel like that's the only reason we beat this Mr. Negative deck, is because we were able to lock down these locations. They weren't able to play those resources, those really powerful resources that they now had access to. And so overall, the deck list feels phenomenal. We ended up going 8-2. So out of a 10-game spread, we won 8 games. We dropped 2. 1 was to a Mr. Negative high roll, and then 1 was to Weird World. So overall, this deck list felt pretty good. We ended up climbing quite a bit, and it's pretty fun. Being able to lock out some of those big combos in like the Hela, something that Death Wave, the regular Death Wave, would struggle with. We can now lock out the Invisible Woman lane to make it difficult for them to resummon the cards that they stacked behind Invisible Woman to be discarded. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. It helps the video reach a larger audience, and it lets me know that you're enjoying the content. And as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. This has been TLSG. Later, guys.